The council chamber was filled with a strange silence. The walls glowed with blue light, and the air smelled of iron and smoke. Old banners of past victories hung above the long table. But tonight those banners felt heavy and hollow. The alien leaders sat tall in their chairs, their scales shining, their armor polished. They were proud, they were confident. They spoke about their fleets, their armies, and their weapons. They laughed about humans as if they were nothing more than insects. But one alien did not laugh. He was old. With scars across his face and chest, his eyes were tired, and his hands trembled when he placed them on the table. He had seen too much war. His voice was rough like stone, and when he spoke, the room grew quiet. "Never attack humans," he said. "They bleed. But they never surrender." His words echoed across the chamber. The younger generals hissed and smirked. They leaned forward and asked him why. They said humans were weak. They had short lives, fragile bodies, and small fleets. How could such creatures stand against the might of the Empire? One laughed so hard that his fangs glistened under the light. He said a single dreadnought could crush an entire human fleet. He said humans would kneel the moment they saw the Empire's banners in the sky. The old alien shook his head. His memory was sharp, sharper than the younger ones realized. He remembered a small battle years ago. He had commanded a fleet against a human patrol ship. The humans had been outnumbered 10-1. Yet they did not flee, they did not surrender. They fought until their ship was a burning husk, and even then, the last survivors set their engines on a collision course. "Destroying half his fleet before they died? They will not stop," the old alien whispered. "Even when death is certain, they fight. Even when their blood spills across the ground, they fight. You may break their bones, but you will never break their spirit." His words carried weight, but the others refused to listen. A young warlord slammed his claw on the table. Sparks jumped from his armored gauntlet. He shouted that the humans were nothing but prey. He claimed the galaxy belonged to the strong, and humans were only clever slaves pretending to be free. The others agreed. They spoke of expanding into human space. They spoke of teaching humans their place under alien rule. The room filled with cruel laughter. The old alien closed his eyes. He could already see the flames that would come. He had lived long enough to understand a dangerous truth. The humans were not like other species. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the smartest, but they carried something inside them that no empire could crush, a fire that grew brighter when challenged. The chamber doors opened, and a messenger rushed in. His chest heaved, and his scales shimmered with sweat. He bowed quickly and spoke with urgency. Human scouts had been spotted at the edge of the Empire's borders. A single cruiser moving slowly, almost inviting attention. The council erupted into noise. Some said it was a trick, others said it was weakness. The warlords demanded that the cruiser be destroyed immediately. They wanted to send a message of power. The old alien tried one last time. His voice rose above the shouting. He told them this was no ordinary enemy. He told them every human death only sharpened the knives of the living. He told them even if they burned a human city, they would see 1,000 more rise from the ashes. But his words were drowned out. The leaders had already decided. They would attack in the silence that followed. The old alien sat back in his chair. His claws scraped against the table. His eyes burned with sorrow. He felt the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. He knew what would happen next. The young would learn the hard way. The humans would bleed, yes, but they would not surrender. They would return with vengeance, and the Empire would pay the price. Far away, beyond the borders, the human cruiser drifted through the void. Its hull was scarred, its shields low. Inside, the crew worked with quiet determination. They knew they were being watched. They knew the aliens were waiting. The captain of the cruiser stood at the front, staring into the endless black of space. His face was calm, but his eyes carried fire. The humans were ready. They had come not only to scout, but to remind the galaxy of who they were. Back in the chamber, the alien council celebrated their decision. They raised their glasses. They dreamed of easy victories. They did not see the shadow on the old alien's face. They did not hear his whisper. "Fools," he muttered, "you will learn. You will see with your own eyes what I already know." His voice faded like smoke in the cold air, and somewhere in the distance, stars waited to burn, ships waited to clash, and history prepared to write another bloody page. The warning had been given, but it had been ignored. The Empire's pride would soon face the truth. The humans were coming, and they would never surrender. The human cruiser floated like a wounded animal in the middle of the stars. Its hull was torn, its shields flickered weakly, and smoke drifted from broken vents. To the alien fleet that surrounded it, the ship looked like easy prey. Dreadnoughts and destroyers loomed all around, shining with deadly weapons. The alien commanders watched from their bridge with cold smiles. They whispered to each other that the battle was already over. "Fire when ready," the alien admiral ordered. His voice was calm, confident. He believed this would be the shortest battle in history. Cannons turned, energy beams lit the darkness, and torpedoes shot forward like hungry predators. The sky bloomed with fire as the alien barrage slammed into the cruiser. Explosions rocked its body. Chunks of armor were ripped away. For a moment, it looked like the ship would break in two. But then something strange happened. The cruiser did not fall. It did not explode. Instead, it turned sharply. Slipping between the beams like a dancer dodging blades, its engines screamed, and its weapons came alive. Railguns spat fire. Missiles flew out like angry hornets, and laser turrets cut through the dark. The aliens were shocked. They had expected surrender. They had expected silence, but the humans fought back with a fury that felt unreal. On board the human ship, the crew moved with perfect rhythm. Men and women with burns and blood on their skin refused to leave their stations. An engineer with a broken arm tied it to his chest and kept working on the reactor. A gunner with smoke in his lungs coughed but still locked missiles onto enemy ships. The captain stood tall at the command deck. His voice strong. "We hold, we strike, we make them fear Earth," he said. His words spread like fire through the crew. The aliens tried to press harder. Their ships tightened their formation. They wanted to crush the cruiser before it caused damage. But the humans were faster than expected. Their railguns ripped open the side of a destroyer. Their torpedoes slid under shields and tore through engines. One alien frigate burst into flames, spinning out of control before vanishing in a violent explosion. The alien admiral's smile vanished. He leaned forward in disbelief. "This is impossible," he growled. But his crew whispered nervously. They had heard stories, old warnings, old whispers that humans never surrendered. Now those stories came alive before their eyes. The human ship took more hits. Its metal bones screamed as another blast punched a hole through its side. Alarms wailed, smoke filled the bridge. Still, no one ran, no one surrendered. The captain wiped blood from his face and shouted new orders. "Bring us closer," he commanded. His crew stared for a second, shocked, but then obeyed. The cruiser roared forward, charging directly at the alien flagship. The alien admiral's eyes widened. He ordered his fleet to open fire. Cannons roared, beams sliced the void. The cruiser shook under the rain of destruction, but it kept moving. Its weapons kept firing, and each shot struck harder, faster, more desperate. The aliens began to panic. Ships that had mocked the humans moments ago now pulled back in fear. Inside the cruiser, the crew braced themselves. They knew their ship would not survive much longer, but they did not care. They fought for Earth. They fought for their families. They fought because surrender was never an option. A young pilot whispered to himself, "If we fall forward," and rammed his fighter into an alien torpedo, saving the cruiser from certain death. His sacrifice lit the hearts of everyone aboard. The alien admiral roared in anger. His claws ripped through the armrest of his chair. He could not understand it. The humans were broken, bleeding, dying, yet they fought as if they were endless. His second officer turned pale and muttered the words no one dared speak. "They will not stop." At that moment, the humans revealed their hidden card. The cruiser's hangar doors cracked open, and out flew small strike ships, fighters that had been silent until now. With desperate precision, they swarmed the alien dreadnoughts. Attacking engines and weak spots, one alien destroyer exploded. Another lost control and drifted into its ally. The sky turned into chaos. The aliens had numbers, they had power. But the humans had something stronger. They had will, they refused to bow. Every time the aliens thought they had crushed them, the humans rose again. The admiral looked at the battlefield and felt something he had never felt before. Fear. The cruiser was on its last breath, its hull cracked, its lights dimmed. But still it pressed forward, railguns roared one last time. A torpedo shot like a blazing arrow and slammed into the alien flagship's shields. The shields shattered, the flagship trembled. The admiral screamed in disbelief, and then silence fell for a moment. The human ship floated in flames. The alien fleet drifted in shock. No one moved. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The admiral looked at the ruined cruiser and realized the truth. Even if it died now, even if every human aboard was gone, their spirit had already won. The old alien veteran's words echoed in his mind. Never attack humans, they bleed. But they never surrender, and for the first time, the Admiral understood those words. For the first time, he feared what would come next. Because if one broken cruiser could do this, what would happen when the full human fleet arrived? The human cruiser drifted like a ghost through the battlefield. Its hull was torn open in places, fires burned inside, and bodies floated in the cold of space. Yet inside that dying ship, life still clung stubbornly. The crew was broken but not defeated. The air was filled with smoke. Alarms screamed from every corner, and the floor shook with each impact. Still, no one abandoned their post. The captain stood at the command deck. His uniform was ripped, blood covered his forehead, and one of his arms hung limp at his side. But his eyes burned with fire. He looked at his people, tired, hurt, coughing, but still alive. He raised his voice so that every ear could hear. "Listen to me," he said. "We are not finished. We will fight until the last spark in our engines, until the last breath in our lungs. We will show them who humans are." The crew shouted back, weak but fierce. A gunner with burns across his face slammed his fist on the console. "For Earth," he cried. An engineer with smoke in her hair tightened a valve and whispered, "For my children." A medic with blood on her hands tied a wound on a soldier and muttered, "For the fallen." Every corner of the ship echoed with the same spirit. They were no longer just a crew. They were a wall of fire standing against the storm. Outside, the alien fleet reorganized. The admiral of the enemy stood tall in his command chair. His claws tapped the armrest in frustration. He had expected this battle to end quickly, but the humans refused to die. He ordered his ships to surround the cruiser again. "Break them this time," he roared. "Crush their spirit," the alien dreadnoughts spread wide, preparing for a final strike. Their cannons glowed with energy, ready to erase the cruiser from existence. But inside the human ship, the captain saw what was coming. He did not flinch. Instead, he leaned forward and gave an order no one expected. "Bring us closer," he said. The crew stared at him, shocked. The cruiser was already dying. To move closer meant certain death. Yet his voice was firm. "If we fall..." "We fall forward!" Engines screamed. The cruiser lurched forward. Fire burst from its rear as it accelerated. Its path pointed straight at the alien flagship. The crew braced themselves, strapping into their seats, holding onto rails. Some whispered prayers. Others clenched their teeth, but not one of them begged for mercy. The alien admiral watched in disbelief. "They are insane," he hissed. His second officer whispered, "No, they are human." The admiral felt a chill. He remembered the old warning, the one he had mocked. "Never attack humans, they bleed." But they never surrender. Now he understood, and it made his heart beat faster with fear. The cruiser's weapons came alive again. Railguns spat iron slugs that tore into enemy hulls. Missiles streaked across the black sky, crashing into alien destroyers. Fighters swarmed from its hangars. Even though half of them were damaged, the small ships dove bravely into enemy fire, striking engines, shields, and weak spots. It was madness, but it worked. The aliens lost ship after ship. Their formation broke apart inside the cruiser. Chaos and courage lived side by side. One engineer crawled through a burning corridor to reach the reactor. Her hands blistered as she reset the system, but the lights flickered back on. A young pilot, bleeding from his forehead, refused to leave his fighter. He screamed into the comms, "Follow me," and rammed his ship into an alien torpedo, destroying it in a fiery burst. His name was remembered in silence by those who saw it. The captain watched the flagship grow larger in the window. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. "Steady," he whispered. The alien admiral screamed for all weapons to fire. The dreadnoughts unleashed their fury. Beams and torpedoes slammed into the cruiser, tearing off whole sections. The deck shook so violently that panels fell from the ceiling. The crew was thrown to the floor, but still they rose. Still they fought at the last moment. When the cruiser was only heartbeats away from collapse, the captain gave one final command. "Fire everything!" The railguns fired their last rounds. Missiles flew in swarms, lasers burned bright. The weapons ripped through the alien flagship's shields, tearing into its armor. Flames burst from its sides. Explosions spread across its hull. The great ship trembled, groaned, and screamed like a dying beast. The alien admiral clung to his chair, his eyes wide, his chest heaving. He had never seen anything like this. He realized then that even if the humans lost this battle, they had already won something greater. They had carved fear into the hearts of their enemies. The human cruiser drifted closer, now little more than a broken shell. Fires spread through its corridors. Its engines coughed their last breath, but inside the crew still cheered. Their voices were hoarse, their bodies broken, yet they laughed. They had stood against an empire and made it bleed. Silence spread across the battlefield. Alien ships pulled back. Their commanders no longer laughed, they no longer mocked. They only stared in awe and horror at the burning human vessel that refused to die. The captain sat back in his chair, his eyes heavy, his chest tight. He looked at his people, all still fighting, still alive. They will remember this day, he whispered. They will remember that we never surrender. His words carried through the ship like a final oath. And far across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Whispers of humans who fought like fire, who bled but never surrendered. Whispers that would soon grow into fear, and fear, the old alien veteran had once said, was the only shield strong enough to stop a war against Earth. The battlefield was littered with wrecks. Human and alien ships alike floated in silence, flames still burning in the void. The human cruiser hung at the center like a ghost, torn apart, its hull cracked. Yet still alive, around it, alien ships hesitated, their crews staring in disbelief. They had thrown everything at the humans. Yet the humans still fought back far away. A new shadow appeared on the horizon. Larger than anything seen so far, it was not one ship, but many. A fleet of human war machines. They emerged from hyperspace in formation, carriers, battleships, and destroyers stretching as far as the eye could see. Their hulls were scarred, dark and ugly. They were not built for beauty. They were built for war, the alien admiral froze. His eyes widened as the new fleet spread across the stars. Impossible, he whispered. He had thought the cruiser was alone, a desperate scout, but now he realized the truth. The humans had sent a message, and now the real response had arrived. On the bridge of the lead human battleship, Admiral Cole stood tall. His uniform was clean, but his eyes were hard. He had seen war before, he knew what waited for his people. He looked at the burning cruiser in the distance. He saw it still holding position against impossible odds, and his voice thundered across the fleet. That ship has shown us what it means to be human. Now we finish what they began. Engines roared. The human fleet surged forward. The carriers launched swarms of fighters, hundreds of them streaking like angry sparks across the dark. Battleships opened fire, railguns thundered, their slugs ripping through the void faster than light. Missiles streaked toward alien dreadnoughts, cutting across space like meteors. The void exploded in fire and fury. The alien fleet panicked. Their formation broke as human weapons ripped holes through their ranks. A destroyer was split in half by a railgun slug. A cruiser's engines were torn apart by torpedoes. Fighters swarmed the larger ships, tearing at weak spots until explosions lit the black sky. The admiral shouted orders, but his commands drowned in chaos. The humans pressed forward like a storm. Inside the human flagship, the crew moved like one body. Gunners locked targets. Engineers pushed the reactors to their limits. Pilots weaved through enemy fire with daring maneuvers. They knew the galaxy was watching. They knew this battle was more than survival. It was a warning. The alien dreadnoughts regrouped. Their massive cannons turned toward the human fleet. Beams of green fire ripped through space, smashing into human armor. One battleship took a direct hit, its side blown open. Hundreds of lives lost in a single flash, but the humans did not slow down. Another battleship moved forward to fill the gap. The line held, the humans refused to break. The admiral of the aliens gritted his teeth. His claws cut deep grooves into the armrests of his chair. He could not understand. His fleet was larger, his weapons stronger. Yet every time his ships struck the humans, they struck back harder every time he tried to crush them. They rose like iron. On the battlefield, the burning cruiser still fought. Against all odds, it fired one last railgun round. The slug screamed through the void and slammed into the side of an alien destroyer. The enemy ship burst apart in flames. The alien admiral stared in disbelief. That ship should have been dead long ago, yet it fought on, and now it inspired the entire human fleet. Admiral Cole gave the order for the second wave. Human carriers released bombers. Heavy ships charged forward with kinetic rams, slamming into alien vessels and tearing them open. Every ship was a weapon, every fighter a blade. The void became a sea of fire. One alien dreadnought tried to flank the humans. Its cannons locked on the flagship. But before it could fire, 3 human destroyers moved to block its path. They unleashed everything they had, missiles, torpedoes, railgun fire, until the dreadnought cracked in half. The 3 destroyers were torn apart in the process. But not one human captain turned away. They gave their lives to shield their admiral. The alien admiral roared in fury. His eyes burned as he realized the truth. This was not just a battle, this was a message. The humans were telling the galaxy that they would never kneel, never surrender, never break. The human fleet pressed closer to the alien flagship. Its shields flared, its cannons blazed. But the humans came like a wave, railguns hammered. Torpedoes crashed into its sides. Fighters swarmed it like angry bees, tearing at its defenses. The admiral of the aliens felt his chest tighten. He had never feared an enemy before, but now, for the first time, he did. Inside the burning cruiser, the captain gave his final order. "Signal the fleet," he whispered. His communications officer, bleeding and coughing, nodded and sent the transmission. A single line spread across the human ships. "We bleed, but we never surrender." The words ignited every soldier, every pilot, every captain. They fought with fire in their hearts. The alien flagship shook under the storm of fire. Its shields cracked, explosions burst across its hull. The admiral watched his empire's pride burn in front of him. He remembered the old veteran's words, and he finally understood: never attack humans. For when they bleed, they rise stronger. For when they stand, they never fall. The void burned with war, but in the flames, a truth was written that could never be erased. The humans had unleashed their war machines, and the galaxy would never forget it. The battlefield no longer looked like space. It looked like a graveyard. Alien ships floated in pieces. Human wrecks burned quietly, and fire lit the dark like falling stars. Yet through all the chaos, one thing remained unbroken: the line of human warships. They stood shoulder to shoulder, massive steel giants covered in scars, holding their ground against an empire that had thought them weak. The alien admiral stared at the sight in disbelief. He had thrown dreadnoughts, cruisers, and entire waves of fighters at the humans. Yet they did not scatter, they did not retreat. Instead, they held like iron. His fleet had more numbers, more technology, but it was his ships that were breaking. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Cole walked slowly across the deck. His boots echoed against the floor. His hands were clasped tightly behind his back. His face was calm, but his eyes burned. He watched the battle unfold on the wide tactical screen. Every explosion, every movement of the enemy fleet was marked in red. His voice cut through the noise. "Hold the line, no matter the cost." "We do not break," the crew shouted back in unison, their voices full of fire. Engineers with oil and blood on their hands pushed the reactors harder. Pilots in small cockpits clenched their teeth as they dove again and again into enemy fire. Gunners braced themselves as the cannons boomed like thunder. The humans had become more than soldiers, they were a wall of fury. The alien dreadnoughts charged once more, their cannons glowing with deadly green light. Beams tore through space, smashing into human armor. One destroyer exploded in a flash of white fire. Another battleship lost half its engines, drifting while still firing every gun it had. The human line shook, but it did not fall. Admiral Cole raised his hand. His voice was steady. "Counterstrike," he ordered. Instantly, the human ships roared to life. Railguns thundered, their slugs smashing through enemy shields. Missiles cut through the void in swarms, detonating against alien armor. One enemy dreadnought was ripped apart, its burning pieces scattering across the battlefield. Another was crippled, spinning out of control. The alien admiral slammed his claws on the armrest. His voice shook with rage. "Why won't they fall?" he shouted. His officers did not answer. They could only watch as the humans, bloodied and broken, refused to die. One of them finally whispered, "They fight harder the more they bleed." The word sent a chill across the bridge. In the middle of the line, the burning human cruiser still fought. Its hull was cracked, its lights dim, but its guns still fired. Each shot was like a scream, a reminder that even death could not silence them. The alien fleet aimed everything at it, desperate to erase the symbol. But when the cruiser's shields finally failed and its hull split apart, the crew did not surrender. Instead, they triggered one last strike. A cluster of torpedoes shot forward, slamming into an alien battleship. The explosion was so massive that it shook ships miles away. The cruiser died, but it died standing. The human fleet saw it, and their hearts burned brighter. The death of their brothers and sisters did not break them. It hardened them. Admiral Cole bowed his head for one moment, then raised his voice. They have given their lives. Now we make it mean something. The line grew stronger. Human warships advanced step by step. Each time one fell, another moved forward to take its place. The aliens watched in horror. They had never seen an enemy like this. Other species fled when the odds turned against them, but humans did the opposite. The more they bled, the harder they fought. The alien admiral ordered his last wave. Massive dreadnoughts, the pride of his empire. Engines roared as they pushed into the human line. The void shook with their firepower. For a moment, it seemed the humans would finally break. Ships exploded, fighters vanished. The line bent under the weight of destruction. But then, like a miracle, the line straightened again. Humans closed the gaps, they ignored their wounds. Their losses, their fear, they held with iron will. The admiral of the aliens watched, and a terrible truth sank into his heart. The humans could not be broken. He could destroy their ships, kill their soldiers, but he could not crush what burned inside them. On the human flagship, Admiral Cole prepared for the final push. His voice filled the comms, heard by every ship, every fighter. "This is who we are," he said. "We bleed, but we do not surrender. Hold your ground, push them back. Today we remind the galaxy what it means to be human." The humans roared in answer. Their ships surged forward. The dreadnoughts of the aliens met them head-on. The battle turned into chaos, cannons flashed, missiles exploded, fighters darted between giants. But through the storm, the human line never broke. The alien admiral gripped his chair. His scales shivered with fear. He realized he was not watching a battle. He was watching a wall of fire, a storm of steel. An army that would rather die than bend. His officers whispered prayers to their ancestors, but no god could save them now. The unbreakable line stood tall in the fire, and in that moment, the galaxy learned a truth that would never be forgotten. Humans did not win battles because they were stronger. They won because they refused to fall. Because when the line was tested, when the void itself tried to swallow them, they became unbreakable. The alien council chamber trembled as distant echoes of war reached them through comms. The great leaders of the empire sat in silence, their proud eyes fixed on the glowing battlefield display. Red markers showed their fleets crumbling one after another. The unthinkable had become real. Their armadas, their pride, their legacy of domination were falling to the humans. The old alien veteran who had once spoken the warning sat at the end of the chamber. His scales were dull, his body frail, but his eyes gleamed with bitter truth. "I told you," he whispered. His voice was barely audible, yet it cut through the silence like a blade. "You mocked me. You called humans fragile, weak, pitiful. Now look." His clawed hand pointed toward the screen where human warships moved like wolves among prey. Far from the council, the alien admiral stood on his flagship. His hands trembled as more reports came in. Destroyer lost, dreadnought crippled, carriers gone. The humans pressed forward without hesitation. His pride, once sharp as steel, now felt like a chain dragging him down. He had called humans vermin, yet they fought like gods of war. His officers whispered behind him, afraid to speak openly. "We cannot stop them," one muttered. "Every time we strike, they rise again," another said. Inside the human flagship, Admiral Cole studied the battle map with cold eyes. He saw the alien fleet breaking, but he did not smile. He knew his own ships had paid dearly. Dozens were gone, thousands of lives lost. Yet their line still held, and it was enough. He leaned forward, his voice low. "Push harder," he said. "We break their pride tonight." His crew responded instantly. Railguns roared, bombers screamed across the void, and the alien fleet staggered backward. On one burning alien dreadnought, the captain screamed to his crew to keep fighting, but his words felt hollow. Their weapons were nearly drained, their shields collapsing. He looked out the viewport and saw human fighters swarming like insects, their guns sparking fire along his hull. "How can they fight like this?" he muttered. His first officer answered with trembling words, "Because they believe in something we do not." The cost of pride weighed heavily on the empire. For centuries they had seen themselves as unchallenged rulers. For centuries they had believed their technology and numbers made them invincible. But pride had blinded them. They had underestimated the will of humans. Now their fleets burned, their soldiers fell, their empire bled. The old veteran's warning returned again and again. It haunted every officer, every soldier, every leader. Never attack humans, they bleed. But they never surrender. Now those words were carved into reality. The battle turned desperate. The alien admiral ordered a retreat, his pride shattered. He could no longer risk total annihilation. Yet even retreat brought no safety. The humans pursued step by step like wolves chasing wounded prey. Railgun fire cracked across the void. Missiles cut down fleeing ships. The humans did not stop on the human flagship. Admiral Cole gave no mercy. His voice was steel. They wanted this war. Now they will pay the price. His officers nodded. They had seen too many friends die, too many ships fall. The humans would not stop until the message was written in blood. The alien admiral's chest ached. His heart felt heavy as he looked at the last remaining ships. He had believed humans would kneel. Now he knelt before the truth. He lowered his head and whispered, "Forgive me." But no forgiveness came. Only fire. In the middle of the chaos, one alien officer turned to his commander with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, we must surrender," he said. "If we do not, the humans will erase us." The admiral hesitated. His claws dug deep into the metal of his chair. Pride screamed in his heart, but reality silenced it. He finally gave the order no one thought possible. "Signal surrender," he said, his voice cracked with shame. Yet even surrender did not erase the cost. Thousands of alien ships already lay in ruins. Millions of lives gone, entire colonies left defenseless. The galaxy would never forget what happened here. The Empire's arrogance had been broken. Its enemies would rise. Its people would whisper of failure on the human flagship. When the signal of surrender reached Admiral Cole, he did not smile. He only nodded slowly, his eyes heavy, his voice calm. "Stand down," he told his fleet. "But remember this night, remember the price of pride. Remember why we fight." The void grew quiet. Fire still burned, wrecks still floated, but the guns fell silent. The war was not over. But a chapter had ended. The Empire had learned its lesson. Too late. In the alien council chamber, the old veteran leaned back in his chair, his eyes closed. His whisper barely reached the others. "The cost of pride is always the same," he said. "And humans are always the ones to collect it." The galaxy would spread the story. Whispers would turn into legends. The Empire's enemies would smile in secret. And every race that once mocked humans would now speak their name with caution. For the cost of pride had been written across the stars, and it was a price no one would forget. The alien flagship drifted in the middle of the battlefield. Smoke poured from its torn hull. Fires burned along its sides, and its once proud banners were nothing more than shredded metal. Inside, Admiral Threx sat frozen in his command chair. His claws dug into the armrests, his breath came in short gasps. All around him, his officers stared at the human fleet closing in, their eyes wide with the kind of fear no alien had ever known. The humans did not celebrate, they did not cheer. They moved with cold precision. Their warships spread like a net across the stars, massive carriers, battleships, and destroyers pushing forward. Their guns glowed hot, their engines roared. They were not simply finishing a battle. They were preparing for the final strike, on the human flagship. Admiral Cole stood at the center of his bridge, his face calm but hard as stone. He had received the alien signal of surrender, but he did not trust it. Too much blood had been spilled, too many lives lost. He turned to his officers and spoke with a voice steady as iron. "Prepare the barrage," he said. "If they try anything, we end this once and for all." Across the fleet, the order spread. Crews loaded the planet-cracking missiles. Weapons locked on the alien flagship and every ship still drifting in its shadow. Bombers took position. Railguns rotated toward the heart of the Empire's pride. The humans were ready to unleash destruction unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Inside the alien flagship, panic spread. Officers whispered frantically. Some begged their admiral to surrender fully, to kneel before humanity before the end came. But Threx's pride still fought within him. His voice cracked as he shouted, "We are not beaten yet. We still have weapons. We can still fight." His words rang hollow. Every alien on that bridge knew the truth. They could not stand against the storm that was coming. Back on the human flagship, silence filled the air. The countdown for the strike began. 10 seconds, 9, 8. The crew stared at their screens, their fingers hovering over the launch controls. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. At 5 seconds, a voice broke through the human comms. It was weak, trembling, but clear, an alien voice, not the admiral's, but a young officer who had taken control of the channel. "We surrender," he said. "We surrender completely." We will not fight again, please. Do not destroy us." His voice shook with shame, but it carried truth. He begged not for pride, but for survival. Admiral Cole narrowed his eyes. He studied the alien flagship. Smoke still rising, weapons dead, shields gone. His heart weighed heavy. He could destroy them now and erase the Empire in one stroke. Or he could pull back and leave them scarred forever. A decision that would echo across history. The countdown reached one. Every human ship waited. Their missiles armed, their guns locked. Their crews ready to end the war in fire. But Cole raised his hand. "Hold," he commanded. The word thundered across the fleet. Weapons froze, missiles held. The final strike stopped at the edge of history. On the alien flagship, silence reigned. Admiral Threx's chest sank as relief washed over him. His pride shattered, he had no words. The young officer who had begged for mercy lowered his head, ashamed but alive. The aliens realized in that moment that humanity had held their fate in its hands and had chosen to let them live. Cole turned to his crew, his voice heavy but clear. "We do not destroy the helpless, but make no mistake. They will remember this night. They will remember that we could have ended them and we chose not to. That fear will haunt them longer than fire ever could." His officers nodded. Some clenched their fists, hungry for vengeance, but they obeyed. They trusted their admiral's judgment. The humans slowly pulled back, their guns still glowing, their ships still ready. They left the alien flagship scarred and broken, a symbol of shame for the entire Empire. The aliens had wanted conquest, but now they were left with humiliation. In the council chambers, when word of the battle arrived, silence fell. The leaders who had once mocked humans as fragile now trembled at their name. The old veteran rose slowly, his voice shaking but strong. "I warned you," he said. "Never attack humans, they bleed, but they never surrender. And now you see, they could have ended us, but they left us alive. That is worse. Because it means they will always return if we ever forget." The galaxy spread the story. Species whispered of human warships that stood unbroken, of soldiers who fought even when their bodies failed, and of a fleet that had the power to erase an empire, but chose instead to leave it in ruins. The warning became a legend on the human flagship. Admiral Cole stood at the window, staring into the endless dark. His fleet was battered, his people exhausted. Yet they stood victorious. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "We bleed, but we never surrender," he said, and with those words, the humans turned their ships for home, leaving behind silence, fire, and a galaxy forever changed. The stars burned quietly now. The battlefield had grown silent. Wrecks of alien dreadnoughts and human cruisers floated side by side, a graveyard of steel drifting in the endless black. The war was over, but its scars would never fade. Among the ruins, the alien flagship still hung, broken and hollow, a reminder of both pride and defeat. Admiral Cole stood at the bridge of his flagship. His uniform was scorched, his voice hoarse, but his eyes remained sharp. Around him, his crew moved with quiet reverence. They had survived the storm, but their hearts were heavy. Thousands of human lives had been lost. Yet their sacrifice had given birth to something larger than victory. It had carved a warning into the galaxy. Across the stars, messages traveled, rumors grew into legends. Tales of humans who bled but never surrendered, spread from one world to the next. Species that had once mocked them now spoke their name in whispers, some in awe, others in fear. In the smoky bars of distant space stations, merchants repeated the story. In war camps on forgotten moons, soldiers told each other never to cross the humans, for they had seen the unthinkable, the Empire itself brought to its knees. In the alien council chamber, silence reigned. Leaders who once laughed at humans now bowed their heads. Their fleets had been shattered, their pride humiliated, and their future uncertain. The old veteran who had warned them all those years ago sat in the shadows. His voice rasped as he finally spoke. "You see now, don't you? The humans do not win because they are stronger. They win because they refuse to fall. They fight beyond reason, beyond pain, beyond death. And now the galaxy will remember, long after our bones are dust." Some of the younger counselors wanted revenge. Their voices rose with anger. "We cannot let this humiliation stand," one growled. But the chamber fell quiet again when the old veteran's eyes glared through the dim light. "Try," he said coldly, "and you will see your entire race burn. Do not mistake mercy for weakness. They could have ended us, but they chose not to. That choice is what terrifies me the most." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the human fleets returned. Battered but triumphant, cities lit up as the warships descended. Families gathered at starports weeping for the ones who would never return, but cheering for those who had survived. Admiral Cole stepped off his flagship, his uniform torn, his body weary, yet crowds roared his name. To them, he was not only a commander, he was a symbol, a living reminder that humanity would never surrender. But even in celebration, there was no peace. The humans knew the galaxy now watched them, some with respect, others with fear. And fear was dangerous. Fear could unite enemies. Fear could lead to whispers of alliances against Earth. Cole knew this. His eyes carried the weight of the future. He spoke to his officers in private. This war is not the end, it is only the beginning. We showed the galaxy who we are, now they will test us again. But we will be ready. Across alien space, survivors of the battle limped home, their fleets reduced to skeletons, their soldiers broken in spirit. Whole colonies whispered of the defeat. Children asked their parents why the Empire had failed, and the answer was always the same, whispered in fear. Because they fought humans. That phrase alone was enough to silence even the proudest voices. The old alien veteran became something more than a soldier. He became a prophet everywhere he traveled. Beings gathered to hear his words, his voice carried the same warning. Never attack humans, they bleed, but they never surrender. Some laughed nervously. Others nodded in silence, but no one truly doubted him anymore. His warning was no longer just a story. It was truth carved into the stars in distant systems. Small races oppressed by the Empire began to rise. Inspired by human defiance, they whispered, "If humans can stand, why can't we?" Sparks of rebellion lit up across the galaxy. The balance of power began to shift. Humanity had not only defended itself, it had changed the course of history. Admiral Cole stood once more before his fleet. The warships were scarred, their hulls dented and scorched, but they stood ready. His voice echoed across every channel, calm and steady. "This is our message to the stars," he said. "We are not conquerors, but we are not prey. We bleed, but we never surrender. Remember it well, for it will live longer than we do." The crews answered with a roar, their voices rising like thunder through the comms. The galaxy listened, and the legend of humanity was sealed. Far away at the edge of the galaxy, shadows stirred. New empires watched. Calculating, some feared, some plotted. But every one of them remembered the story of the humans. The story of fire, steel, and blood. The story of a species that refused to kneel. And so the warning lived on, carried by whispers, etched into memory. For as long as stars burned, the galaxy would never forget. Humanity could be wounded, humanity could bleed, but humanity would never surrender.